Let's see. Starting. Okay. All right, well, I guess we're on track. If it doesn't show up, I'll call you back. Thanks, John. Okay, bye. Let's see, we're going to put this over
So
here.
they're seeing nothing yet. Oh, there we are.
There we are. It's a delay.
Okay. Sure is.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Maybe some people could let us know if
You're receiving.
you're seeing us. There's a message box in the lower right-hand corner where I believe you can type in a message and maybe just let us know, yes, you see us, and maybe tell us where you're from. Ah, great.
Oh, good.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Harry.
Harry. Great.
Great.
Oh, good. Nice to see people. Okay, so for those of you who don't know us, my name is Jake Eagle,
I'm Hannah.
and I'm a psychotherapist. I've been in practice for 25 years, and we have been doing this work, this personal growth work, for the last 15 years. We've been teaching together. We teach retreats as well as our private practices. Hannah's a homeopath, and she works with people in a different way than I do. But our goal is always to help people grow and evolve and develop healthier relationships, both with ourselves and with our partners, with our kids, with our parents. So that's what our work is all about. In the, just seeing more people coming on. Great, nice to see you from
Welcome.
Germany and Denmark
And Japan.
and Japan and Dubai. Great, great, very global event today.
Yes.
So we've been doing this work, as I said, for about 15 years. And in the last 6 months, we've taken a tremendous leap forward in terms of our understanding about why we think some people don't benefit as much as they could when they pursue personal growth. And what we're doing now is we're sharing the information with you that we have been playing with for the last 6 months. And this has made an enormous difference in our lives, in the way we relate. And the people we've shared it with have grown in ways that I've never seen before. So we're really excited about this. The basic construct is that all personal growth work is a matter of learning to work with our consciousness, our state of being. And what we've recognized in the last few months is that there are different levels of consciousness. And we believe we understand why a lot of people are not growing as fast as they would like, not getting the results that they want. And that's what this relatively short webinar is about. We're going to suggest a new model to you, and we're going to give you some specific things that you can practice before we're done today. The basic idea is, I'm going to share my screen with you now. We don't have a lot of slides, but I'm going to show you a few. And I'm going to start by sharing this, this idea about 3 degrees of consciousness. And the purpose of the 3 degrees is that we can create safety in our lives, we learn how to open our hearts, and we find peace of mind. The key to doing all of these things is to recognize, as I said a minute ago, that consciousness is a state or quality of awareness, but it varies. Consciousness varies depending on the questions that we ask, the intentions that we set, and our behaviors. And so we're going to suggest to you today that the 3 degrees of consciousness are the following. There is safety consciousness, heart consciousness, and what we're calling spacious consciousness. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through these and provide some examples for you. What I want to have you do is just look at the image that's on your screen and notice how you feel. Notice what comes up in you, if anything. Just take a moment.
And then send us a note once you've got it.
So go ahead and type in to the message box if there is some response you have to this image. Hello, Dirk from Germany. Nice to see you.
Hi, Derek. Michelle from Rome.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Some people are typing in hidden, safety, suspicious, scared, afraid. Somebody says, I'm smiling.
Protective.
Someone says, this is a smiling child. So another suspicious, curious, looking through the ripped paper. So we have different perceptions of the image. But what we're going to suggest to you is that the idea of scared, suspicious, afraid, safety, protective, that these all come from what we call safety consciousness. Now, I'm advancing the slide, and we're going to talk a little bit about safety consciousness. When I'm in safety consciousness, and it's my contention that this is where most of us live most of our lives, and this is not a bad thing. It's a matter of understanding that this is where I am. And then the question is this the consciousness that I want to be in, given what I'm trying to do or how I'm trying to be? Now, when I'm in safety consciousness, primarily the kinds of questions that I'm asking myself are things like, am I safe? Can I trust you? And so this relates back to that picture we just saw where people said there's a certain degree of suspicion or fear or protectiveness. And so I'm asking questions because I am focused on creating safety. My behaviors when I am in safety consciousness, I will tend to be argumentative because I want to demonstrate that I'm right. I will tend to be defensive, which means that I may be rationalizing or self-justifying my point of view or my position. And my behaviors can range anywhere from withdrawing. Sometimes people will withdraw as a way to make themselves feel safe. And other times people will be very assertive or aggressive, and they'll actually bully other people as a way to feel safe. So I have a whole range of behaviors that exist, and I'm not suggesting that they're all unhealthy. I'm just suggesting there's a very wide range. And my intentions when I'm in safety consciousness, my intentions are to protect myself, to be right, and to make myself safe. This is my orientation. I'm going to come back on the screen, stop sharing as soon as I figure out how. Here we go. Okay, so the point is that I believe that this is where most of us live most of the time. And again, I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that I can only accomplish certain things when I'm in safety consciousness. If I really want to connect with my partner and I'm in safety consciousness, I put up some barriers, I put up some walls. There's a certain defensiveness. I want to be right more than I want to connect. So if I'm trying to connect with another person, generally being in safety consciousness is not really what I want to do. However, there are times in our relationship where we both need to be in safety consciousness. We need to negotiate boundaries. We need to make agreements. Maybe one of us is feeling unsafe. And so we do need to talk about things, and we need to do that in a way that we make ourselves feel safe. Not that my partner makes me feel safe, but that I make myself feel safe. Now, this is primarily what our work has been focused on. We teach people a way to use language, a way to speak to one another that creates a tremendous amount of safety. And it's extremely effective, and it's been really great in our marriage for the last, well, we've been using this for about 15 years. We've been together for 25 years. And this has been incredibly helpful. It's laid a very strong foundation for our relationship. And our work doesn't stop there. Our work goes on to the next degree of consciousness, and I'm going to talk about that now.
I have a little suggestion too.
Great.
Though safety can relate to how we speak to ourselves. And like last evening, I was having a lot of performance anxiety about doing this webinar. And I had to look at, what I was afraid of. There was nothing actually to be afraid of. And what did I want? What was the choice I wanted to make? And that was to share some information that I find really useful and life-changing for myself. So that actually allowed me to go into heart consciousness, which is our next topic.
Yeah. So we're going to show you a couple slides that we think relate to heart consciousness.
I'll say something about this photo. I took this at the Monterey Aquarium in California. This was their beautiful display of jellyfish moving inside an aquarium. What was sort of profound to me was that these beings were moving about, connecting with each other without any kind of, it was so gentle, flowing through space with a degree of separateness, with their tentacles all flowing around each other, but never getting entangled. So, and the slowness and gentleness, I can't show you here. I wanted to do that, but it was going to take too much. It was too big of a project to give you something in this webinar to show you the movement. But you actually can go online to the Monterey Aquarium and see a live cam of these and get a better idea.
So we're thinking of this as representing heart consciousness. And I want to talk a little bit about heart consciousness. When I'm in heart consciousness, I'm asking very different questions than the questions that have to do with safety. The kinds of questions I ask are, how can I fill myself with love? And notice that I'm not saying, how can my partner fill me with love? How can another person fill me with love? But how can I fill myself with the experience of love? How can I make a contribution? How can I see the beauty in what's going on around me? And this has always been something I've been fascinated with, trying to find the beauty in whatever it is that I'm observing, whether it's people or nature. And I found it to be an extremely helpful question. Now, my behaviors when I'm in heart consciousness relate to what Hannah just said, which is that I am very autonomous. But that doesn't mean that I don't connect with other people. I connect, but I don't lose myself in the connection. And this is what I see happening often with couples, is that they do very well independently in the world, then they get into a romantic partnership and they tend to lose themselves. And guess what happens when they lose themselves? They go right into safety consciousness because they become anxious, they feel unclear about their boundaries, they feel that they have to make compromises, some of which they may not be comfortable with, and so they go into a defensive posture. Other things that happen when I'm in heart consciousness in terms of my behavior, I tend to be very curious. One of the words we use for this is that we witness other people. In other words, we are present with other people, curious about them, non-judgmental. And this is a heart-opening experience for most of us. Also, when I'm in heart consciousness, I tend to be very appreciative. I feel a lot of gratitude and appreciation for my life and the people in my life. And that just further helps me expand my heart consciousness. My intentions to be in heart consciousness are to open my heart, to be vulnerable, and to connect with other people, but to connect in a way where I don't lose myself. Now, I'm going to turn off the slides and we'll come back on the screen. And what I want to point out is that I think there's a great deal of confusion about heart consciousness. What I observe is that oftentimes when people are talking about heart consciousness, what they're really doing is talking about having other people make me feel lovable, to receive love from other people. And that is an aspect of heart consciousness, but I don't think it is the key, because what I'm doing is I'm transferring responsibility to somebody else to make me feel a certain way. When they do it well, I appreciate them, and when they don't, I blame them. And so I believe that if I take responsibility to create my own state of heart consciousness, which is, again, to fill myself with love, the love that surrounds me in the world. If I fill myself with that, then when I come to interact with my partner, I come with a fullness. I don't come needy, desperate, scared, fighting to get things, because I already have a sense of fullness in myself. If I don't have that, what I believe happens is I am very likely to revert back to safety consciousness. And when I do couples work in counseling, most of the time what I see are people who are in safety consciousness talking about issues related to heart consciousness, but they're in the wrong space. And as a result, they discourage themselves, they don't connect, and it's usually really a sad way for people who actually love each other to relate. So what we're doing is we're teaching people to start to recognize, where are you? If you're in safety consciousness, don't pretend that you're in heart consciousness. Take care of the needs you have around safety. And then if you want to go to heart consciousness, you have to let go of the issues related to safety. Those are not dealt with when I'm in a heart space. Okay.
I want to say one thing about how I help myself get into heart consciousness quickly, and that's to do something kind for someone else without expecting anything in return. I open my heart radically when I do that.
And what I've noticed since we've been using this model is that when I am interacting with Hannah in a way that feels off, I notice I'm in safety consciousness.
Right.
And I actually don't need to be.
Right.
There is no threat. There is no problem. You are my best friend.
Right.
And as soon as I have the awareness that I've gone to safety consciousness, and I don't blame her for that, that's me, then I say, I want to be in heart consciousness. I open myself up, and our connection is almost immediate. It actually feels immediate. It's instantaneous. And this is so clarifying to know, where do I want to be in relationship to you? So I encourage you to think about this. It's a different concept. The thing that we're emphasizing in heart consciousness that is so unusual is separateness. Often when people talk about heart consciousness, particularly in our current culture, they talk about the fact that we're all one and that we're all connected. And I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying that we're not, but I'm talking about this from a psychological, emotional point of view. From a psychological and emotional point of view, I am separate. I need to take responsibility for my emotions and for my nervous system, right, and not expect somebody else to do that for me. When I recognize my separateness and I do what I need to do to take responsibility, to learn to comfort myself, to learn to soothe myself, to open my heart, now I'm really available to connect with another human being. Okay, we're going to talk about the next area of consciousness. I'm going to share the slides, a couple slides again. And you can see when it comes up over there.
Okay. This next photo coming up is one that I took out of an airplane. You might just let us know how you feel when you look at this photo. What comes up for you?
What sensations?
And then maybe type in what you're sensing.
And while you're doing that, somebody wrote floating. Free light.
Lightweight. Free light. Free and light. Airy. Breath.
So these are all wonderful coolness, fresh.
Expandable, open, and free.
These are all wonderful definitions or descriptions of how we think of spaciousness. Nice and soft, expanse. Somebody wrote the name of his wife, which is quite sweet. Or maybe that's coming from her. The idea here is that this is a very different state of being. It's a very different degree of consciousness. And we have been practicing for a while. Hannah's been a meditator for a long time. Me, not so long, because I haven't done well with meditation in the past. But we developed a new meditation, I'm going to say 8 months ago, that was designed to take us into what we're calling spacious consciousness. And it has been tremendous in terms of the changes that it's brought about in, I'll speak for myself, in my life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. The idea of spacious consciousness, this is not necessarily a state of being that I stay in all the time. This is more a state of being that I access, and then it imbues the rest of my day, the rest of my activities. The questions that I ask to access spacious consciousness are, how can I expand my awareness?
What am I sensing right now?
And when I am in this state, my behavior is very simply one of being present. And what happens when I'm present is that I transcend my existential anxiety. What does that mean? When I talk about existential anxiety, there are two primary things that come to mind. The first one is that most people have a fear of death. The second one is that most of us operate by living in an orientation of time. In other words, we measure ourselves based on time, the things we get done, the things we have to do. It's why often we feel a sense of urgency. It's why many of us multitask and feel overwhelmed. It's because we live in an orientation where time is ever present. What that does is it creates anxiety. The reason it creates anxiety for me is because time feels like it's running out. I seldom feel like I have enough time. Now, when I go into spacious consciousness, I no longer relate to the world from the orientation of time. I relate in a spatial way. Everything becomes so expansive that I stop thinking about time. This also helps me deal with my anxiety about death. And I'll give you, well, I'll do it in a minute. I'll give you an example in a minute. Let me just tell you the intention behind spacious consciousness is to have an expanded awareness and to create peace of mind. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we'll come back. And I'll talk a little bit about this example. The way we access spacious consciousness is through meditation. I do this 20 minutes every morning, but I have found that even doing it for 10 minutes is sufficient to access this state and then have this stay with me throughout the day. I've been doing this for about 8 months, and it took me 5 months before I found this easy and was able to access the state effortlessly, which is now the case. And as I said, I was not really a good meditator. I didn't enjoy meditating before this new form that we developed. And now I find it easy and very fluid. One of the examples that I wanted to give has to do with my best friend, who actually has been diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I have been accompanying him in this process since last December. What I find is that when I am in a state of spacious consciousness, I'm completely relaxed around this. I'm also a much better friend because I am relaxed. I'm not bringing my own anxiety to the situation. I have gone through this kind of thing before in the past, and I have made myself terribly anxious when people who were close to me were in the process of dying. I didn't know how to access this kind of consciousness. And now that I do, I think it's one of the most significant improvements, developments, enhancements in my life. I have this way of accessing a state of being that allows me to put things in a perspective that I would say is fearless and without anxiety. And the results are so meaningful to me that I am absolutely committed to my practice. So I don't know if you want to say any more about this.
I just say something about a personal experience of mine. My mom passed away last year, less than a year ago. I had kind of a lifelong fear of being with someone when they were dying, and particularly with my mom. So in the last several weeks of her life, the one request she had was for someone to be with her all the time. She didn't want to die alone. So my family took shifts over a 24-hour period every day. I came to a place where instead of staying in safety consciousness and fearing, I went to heart consciousness, where I was there for her. I was there to help her regardless of how scary this might be in the end. And actually, in the process, I was able to go to spaciousness around her death and really be there for her, so that my fears became far smaller and my love became spacious. And so the fear was like stars in a vast sky. So that was my process of going from safety to spacious consciousness. And again, the most important thing is to know where you are.
Yeah, we're not saying that one should try to live in spacious consciousness all the time. Just this morning, we were having a conversation about a change that we're making in our lives. And we were both saying, well, what state of consciousness are we in and what do we want to be in? And for most of my life, I've lived in safety consciousness and it served me extremely well. but we're going through a transition now in our life. We're going to be making some big changes, and we both said that we want to make these changes so that we can be in heart consciousness more. And in part, we can do that because we have done a good job of taking care of our safety consciousness needs. But this is a process where you flow. It's not like I go into one state of consciousness and stay there forever. Throughout the day, I can go in and out of these different degrees of consciousness. I can do that for minutes, hours, or seconds. And we're going to talk a little bit now about, a little bit more about sort of the how to do this.
But also in the sense of knowing where you are. If you're engaged in an argument, you're in safety consciousness. If you're fearing anything, that's where you are. So there is an evolution to where you can go.
And naming this is so important. There's that expression that naming is taming. So if we're having an argument, one of us hopefully will have the presence of mind to say, we've gone into safety consciousness. Is that where we want to be?
Right.
And just naming the consciousness we're in often allows us to shift. I want to show you a couple more slides, and then going to have a few questions to ask you. So I spoke about our awareness of time, but in this slide, I just want to demonstrate that the way I see it is that when we are in safety consciousness, I'm just waiting for the slide to come up for all of you. When we're in safety consciousness, our awareness of time is driving us almost 100%. 90–95% of our awareness is about time, getting things done, accomplishing things, being results oriented, feeling pressured, feeling busy, feeling overwhelmed. When I shift to heart consciousness, I still am focused on time. I'm still very aware of time, but not to the same degree. I begin to have an experience that's more expansive, more relaxing. I begin to have a sense of spaciousness. When I then go to spacious consciousness, I actually lose just about all awareness of time. I'm no longer thinking in terms of deadlines, accomplishments. I am simply present with my own experience in the moment, fully present. Now, I want to suggest, what are the keys that will help you access each state of consciousness, each degree? And I talked about this a little bit earlier, that the work we've been doing, we've been teaching people in rheology in our retreats, which we put on a couple times a year, and we have one coming up in about a month. In our retreats, we're teaching people how to use language, we call it re-speak, and it allows people to have a sense of control over their own emotions and their own nervous system. And when I gain that sense of control, I immediately feel safer and more relaxed. We also teach people something we call a redo. And the redo is the ability to go back when we feel we have not conducted ourselves the way we want to. I can go back and redo myself. So it's almost like I always have a second chance. And the fact that I have a second chance also gives me a great degree of safety and comfort.
And more comfort the quicker I do my redo.
Right. Yeah. If we wait, we suffer.
Yes.
If we wait to redo ourselves, we live in a state of angst. And as soon as we redo ourselves, we relieve ourselves.
That's right.
And then we also teach people something called return to now. And the idea here is to really stay attentive to what's happening in the moment. Hen and I no longer argue about who said what yesterday or what happened last week. We simply stay focused on what is it that each of us needs right now in the moment. Now, all of these are things that we're teaching in our programs, and They're also, for the most part, they're in my book, and I'll tell you about that later. There are different ways you can learn more. But my point was that most of our work has been focused on helping people create safety and also accessing the consciousness of the heart. And the way we've been doing that is helping people be really clear when they're interacting with other people about what's mine and what's yours. What is my responsibility? What is your responsibility? What are my feelings? What are your feelings? And as we create this separation, we gain great clarity. We unenmesh, we untangle, we become clear about ourselves and what responsibility lies with each individual.
And we eliminate blame.
And this is one of the keys to creating the heart space, is dropping blame. Now, it also suggests that heart consciousness comes about as a result of filling oneself with love. And we each do that in different ways. For some of us, it's music or movement. For me, it's going out in nature. Hannah talked earlier about kindness. I spoke about beauty. My dad relied on humor as a way to open his heart and connect with people. So this is also part of the work that we're doing, but we're now focusing more on being clear about which degree of consciousness are people in. And then in terms of the spacious consciousness, the vehicle to get there is meditation.
And sensory awareness, which is something we practice in our retreats.
And so these are the vehicles to help us get into the different states of consciousness. I wanted to ask you some questions and also get a sense of sort of
how often?
Well, a couple questions. How often do we argue? We had an argument this weekend. It was the first time, I'm going to say it was the first, I think it was the first argument we've had either this year or in the last 3 months.
I think this year.
Yeah, this has been a really good year. We used to have arguments, I would say, when the first year we were together, we'd have a couple arguments a week. Prior to doing this work with the 3 degrees of consciousness, it was probably arguments every 10 days. Would you agree?
Well, that was before rheology.
But since this piece about heart consciousness, safety, and our meditation practices, since we have been doing this, literally, I think we've argued once this year. And the circumstances are interesting in that I had a chiropractic adjustment that caused some pain. And so I had sort of a mild migraine headache for 3 days and became very impatient. And at one point I just told Hannah to leave me alone, that I just needed to be left alone. And I don't think I've ever said that before in a kind of a hostile way. So it's very unusual.
Yeah. Not
typical. There are a couple other questions. Someone said I sometimes use humor to achieve safety. Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you know that, Alan, because I think some people use humor and they think they're doing it to open their hearts and connect with other people, but they're really just trying to create safety, which is fine. It's
but
great
it also,
that you know that.
Also keeps you from connecting on another level often.
I see a couple people saying that they're having this really long buffer that we talk and there's this really long delay, and so they're not able to follow us. I'm sorry that's happening. I don't have a solution. We will look for better technology, but I don't have a solution to that. Somebody asked the question, is filling yourself with love a replacement for needing for your partner's love? No, not exactly. To me, they're different. I want to fill myself with love, but I also want my partner's love. The difference is that I'm taking responsibility to create a state of love, to open my heart. I have that be my responsibility, not Hannah's. When I create that state, I then want to share that with her. And I hope that she too is in an open-hearted space. When that happens, our connection is remarkably rewarding. and deeply intimate.
I think the key word for me here is need, because my need can make me needy. If I am just here in a loving way to love my partner and he is there in the same way, that's very different from my not getting what I need. So that's all I have to say.
Somebody asked, can arguments based on having different ideologies or worldviews be solved by just being aware of this? The quality of the relationship can be solved or improved. It doesn't necessarily answer the argument. We actually have been dealing with something in our lives where we have a very different idea of what is the right thing to do. But when we talk about this, we realize that we each have our own point of view, and it's different. And we're not trying to make the other one right, or I'm not trying to make myself right and make Hannah wrong. We're just trying to understand that we see the world in a different way. But the quality of the conversation is curiosity. We're witnessing each other. We're respectful.
We're not making ourselves wrong with each other.
Right, right. And we still don't agree, by the way.
Yeah.
We still have a different opinion about what the right thing is to do. But there's a lot of respect and consideration for one another in the process.
Right.
Lars is saying, I think I can use ways I fill myself with love to also hide sometimes. Yeah, I think that's, I think I understand that, Lars. I think that, again, to me, the most important thing is the awareness. So if I'm using ways I fill myself with love to hide, then I may be taking myself into safety. And the question is that what I want to do? So I appreciate the self-awareness. I think that's the important part. There's two pieces to this, and it's kind of the wrap-up, which we'll get to in a few minutes. One is knowing where I am. What degree of consciousness am I in? And then the second one is, what degree of consciousness do I want to be in? And I love this because as soon as I ask that question, I'm taking complete responsibility for myself. I'm not holding anybody else responsible for how I'm doing. Let's see, a couple more questions here. Do you think physical healing can happen better in one or more of these degrees? Great question, John. Yeah, I do. And I've played with this a lot in the last several months because I've had various minor health issues. I believe that the healing for me occurs more immediately when I'm in spacious consciousness. There's some deep relaxation that occurs in spacious consciousness. And there's a lot of research that demonstrates healing generally occurs better when people are more relaxed. So I think that the relaxation allows the healing process to occur more immediately. Thanks for the question.
I want to answer, Ilyas says, thank you for your answers, but isn't it natural to need your partner's love if you love she? Yes, it is kind of our natural state. But where I go is I choose to love my partner if my partner is loving me, is choosing to love me. And so I substitute the word need for choosing or choice. If my partner didn't choose to love me back, I wouldn't be with my partner. So that, for me, makes it less messy and a much healthier relationship.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that my need for love is still a big part of my life. It's just that I am filling more of that need than I used to. Therefore, I'm less clinging, I'm less attached, I'm less dependent on Hannah. I still need and want her love tremendously, but not
in a needy way.
not desperately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you do this couples work if your partner is not familiar or comfortable with talking about the heart? He's afraid of therapy and analyzing. Well, I think actually that this model could be really helpful because when we make these separations of what's safety and what's hard and what's spacious, it's easier. I don't confuse myself. When I talk about safety, I feel more comfortable acknowledging my own issues, my own fears, my own concerns, because that's what safety consciousness is about. It isn't a good or a bad thing. I can then shift to heart consciousness and try to leave behind my concerns about safety. So I would just encourage you to share the model. It's not a complicated model, and see if it allows you to have more productive conversations. I think it might. Also, we don't do a lot of analyzing. Remember our idea about return to now? We don't spend much time going back and saying, well, why did you behave that way? And where do these feelings come from? I'm not saying we never do that, but I'm suggesting that we're much more productive staying present with one another.
And also, Maureen, I would suggest if you get into these more evolved states of consciousness, you may have him respond to you in a different way.
Yeah, it's a great point. Actually, great. Yeah, I think so too. I think that when I'm in a state of spacious consciousness, I know that Anna responds to me in a very different way.
Right.
Yeah, it's a whole different energetic.
Right.
Yeah. David, I think we missed your question. Do you see a benefit to have this understanding when looking at one's psychological flexibility, and more specifically, a completed ACT matrix? Not familiar with the ACT matrix, but do I see a benefit to having this understanding when looking at one's psychological flexibility? Absolutely.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a combination of self-awareness and behavioral / psychological / emotional flexibility. That's what this model is about. I have the awareness and then the flexibility to take myself into different degrees of consciousness. And I want to reiterate what I said earlier, which is I think the reason that, in my opinion, most therapy is limited in its results, it's because most therapy remains at the level of safety consciousness. When the client comes in and they start talking about their fears and their anxieties, and the therapist participates in that conversation, the therapist is reinforcing the safety consciousness. Sometimes that's the right thing to do, but I see many therapists do that almost all the time. And I'm suggesting that by introducing people to a really different state, a different experience, a different way of being, which is heart consciousness and then spacious consciousness, it changes the initial conversation. The initial conversation that was about safety can be transformed. Doesn't mean we don't need to talk about safety, but far less than we do, in my opinion. Okay, you're welcome. Love that term, flexible, somebody said.
Yes.
Great. Had a few questions. I'm going to just try this. We're not all that familiar with this technology, but stick with us for a minute. Let's just see if this works. So I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to put it up and you get to answer. So the question, it's funny, on my screen, I can't see the end of the question. Can you? It says, what degree of consciousness were you in when? Did any of you see the end of that?
And can type it in.
I think it said, when you were in your last argument.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that's what it said too.
So you click on safety, hard, or spacious. Maybe I have to start the poll. Well, what degree of consciousness were you in when you had your last argument with your partner?
Or a coworker.
Yeah, when you had your last argument, what degree?
Or a friend.
Okay. So this is fun. We're seeing the results. I don't know if you can see them, but right now, 90% of you are saying that you were in safety consciousness, and 10% are saying spacious. It's interesting. I can't imagine arguing with somebody while in spacious consciousness, but that doesn't mean that wasn't your experience. People are now saying 7% spacious, 7% heart, 87% safety. I think in general, the consensus is that when we're having arguments, we're in safety consciousness. I think that's right. I have another one for you. Let's see. Try this one. Unfortunately, I can't see them until I bring them up, but I'm going to try it again.
Okay.
What degree of consciousness were you in the last time you made love? What degree of consciousness were you in the last time you made love?
Nobody did.
Give them a minute.
There we go.
Well, I'm going to applaud you for being a very honest group of people. Right now, it's saying 57% are saying safety, 43% are saying heart. I appreciate your candor because I think that's probably right. I think that based on my experience and what I hear people tell me, often we're actually in safety consciousness when we're making love or having a deep loving connection with our partner.
Right.
So it's great to be aware of that. And if you haven't had the experience of being in heart consciousness when you're making love, approach it with that idea, approach it with that as a possibility. It's a very different experience. We try to do this thing of being in spacious consciousness when we're making love, but I haven't been able to stay there. So, but it's still a goal. It's kind of funny to have a goal in spacious consciousness, but it's something that we have fun with. Okay, great, thank you. Let's see. Well, I'm going to
See if there are any questions coming up too.
Yeah, I'll see if there are any questions. Nora said, misunderstanding for me is how I interpret arguments. Misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It means that I'm not understanding. How I interpret that is it means that I'm not sufficiently understanding your point of view. I like that very much. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the slides briefly, and then we're going to wrap up. And let me share my screen again. Okay, I've talked about this, but I just want to reiterate it. What we're really saying in terms of what you can do, it's two things. The first is to be aware of the state of consciousness that you're in now. And I think the slide is coming up for you now. So the first thing is to be aware of the state of consciousness that you're in now. That's the question to ask yourself if you want to use this model. And then the second thing is to make conscious your intention about what state of consciousness you want to be in now. I do this, I said it earlier, but I do this with Hannah now. Anytime there's the slightest bit of tension or impatience on my part, I ask myself what state of consciousness I'm in. The answer is safety. I ask myself what state of consciousness I want to be in. The answer is almost always heart, and I immediately shift. Now, if there is something I need to take care of from a safety point of view, then I would recognize that and say to her, I want to have a conversation with you. It's around something having to do with safety. After being married for 25 years and doing the work we've done, I don't need to have a lot of those conversations at this point.
And being adept in re-speak, we have those conversations without blame.
Right. We have this amazing foundation because we've been using re-speak for 15 years. So there's just a great deal of trust and safety already built into our conversations. And I don't want to underestimate that in terms of y'all taking what we're giving you today and going off and working with it. The foundation we have is significant because of the way we've learned to talk to one another.
There's a question from Ilya. Do you think there are precise boundaries between the state's safety heart space, or the boundaries are the boundaries blurred? Personally, I think that there are clear boundaries between safety and heart consciousness and spaciousness. But I would have the lines blurred between heart consciousness and spaciousness.
And for me, I would say the opposite. I would say that there's sort of a blurred boundary between safety and heart, and that when I go to spaciousness, it's a very distinct boundary that I cross. So what we see from this is just that we're going to have our own individual experiences.
Right.
And it isn't about a right or a wrong way of doing it. It's just figuring it out for ourselves. Alan asked, what about a better state of safety?
Mm-hmm.
And can you say more about the meditation? A better state of safety. Not sure I understand your question, but I think I do. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, safety is not always a bad place. I think that's what he means.
Safety is an essential place. It's absolutely crucial. The thing that makes safety better or worse is whether or not I am mature in my expression of my needs and feelings. So when I'm in safety, which I am a lot, my objective is to conduct myself in a mature way. And as long as I'm conducting myself in a mature way, I believe that's a better way to be in safety. And I can't avoid safety. But anything I want to express, I can express maturely or immaturely. And so my objective is to express myself maturely. Nora, my experience with Ilya's question is yes, boundaries are what makes one word be different from the other, yet they relate. They're cousins. Very nice. Thank you, Nora.
Yes.
Another question, does heart consciousness ever not have any anxiety involved or just less anxiety? I don't know. For me, it has very low levels of anxiety, but it's not a state with, it's not, for me, it's not similar to spacious consciousness where I have no anxiety and no fear.
And for me, when I'm in heart consciousness and have anxiety come up, I'm recognizing that I'm slipping back into safety consciousness.
You know what? I just realized that you all are looking at a slide instead of looking at us. So I'm just going to address the slide and then I'm going to come back so you can see us. The slide was just a list of resources. I didn't realize it was on the screen. And I'll mention it in a minute. But most of these are things you can find on our website. My book, Rewrite Your Life, is a great introduction to rheology and re-speak. We have a video course. It's 3 one-hour segments, 1 hour on dating, 1 hour on relating, 1 hour on mating. And it too is a very solid foundation in terms of rheology and re-speak. And then we have 300 articles and a few booklets that are free. We put on retreats twice a year. We're doing one in a month, and we have 2 openings still available.
And if you at all think you can't, it's too far or you can't afford it, we have people coming from Holland, from Canada. We have people who borrow money to do these retreats and get tremendous amount out of them.
And we work with people.
We do.
We've done payment plans and a
Yeah.
variety of other things. We don't like money to be a reason people can't do it. So
Exactly.
if you want to do it, the best thing is to set up a consultation with us, and we'll be available to talk with you. We're just happy to do that. And in terms of contacting us, it's jake@rheology.org or hannah@rheology.org. I think most of you know our website, and our phone number is on the website. I'm going to stop the screen sharing so you can see us, and we'll answer a few more questions. Of course, the emails from us are so vital. Great. I'm glad to hear that, Nora. Lars said, I can be conscious or unconscious in any state. I suppose so. I don't really know. When I'm in spacious consciousness, I'm remarkably conscious and aware that I'm in spacious consciousness. However, there may be times I'm in spacious consciousness and I don't know it. So I suppose that's possible.
I think mostly when I'm in a, or have been in the past, a safety consciousness, I've been pretty much unconscious. However, now I brought that to my consciousness. And actually then I make that choice not to stay there if I don't need to.
And Nora made a comment about learning about maturity by studying Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. It's great stuff. I'm a proponent of Marshall's work. I think that it doesn't go far enough. I think there's a couple glitches in it, but it's great stuff. My concern with his work is that to some degree, it encourages us to think that we know what other people need. Mm-hmm. And in our work, we don't make that assumption. I don't assume that I know what Hannah needs. I look to her to figure that out and to tell me what she needs.
Nor do I assume that you know what I need.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But I like his work. I mean, I'm 90% positive on nonviolent communication. Yeah. So I don't want to discourage people from looking into it. It's great stuff. I suppose being more conscious in safety is what I meant. Thank you. Being more conscious in safety.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Any additional tips for any individuals who experience trauma, supporting them from a constant state of safety, consciousness, heart consciousness? The main thing with trauma, David, is to learn to tell the story, from different states of consciousness. What happens in therapy most of the time is that we therapists encourage people to tell about their trauma while they're in a state of safety consciousness. That's okay, that's valuable, it's necessary sometimes. But if I can then get a client to describe the same experience from a state of heart consciousness, then they start to have a different relationship to their own memory. And it's very powerful. Yeah. Very powerful. We have also done work with people accessing spacious consciousness, deeply accessing spacious consciousness, then come out of spacious consciousness, because in spacious consciousness, I'm not thinking, I'm not labeling, I'm not talking. But I access that state, I then come out of it, and then I talk about the trauma. And again, I completely rewire my relationship to my own narrative, to my own story. So it's very effective. And I, at some point, will write about that. Okay, folks. It's been an hour. We were going to try to keep this relatively short. I've had a great time. I hope it's been beneficial for you. There were a couple, there's this one other thing. Let me do this. If you are interested in learning more about this, I don't know how this works. I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm putting up a half-price offer for my book. Let me see. Here it goes. So what happens is there's a link that you should see. And if you click on that link and you want to buy the book, if you put in the coupon code half price, you can get the book for half price. So that is an option. If for some reason the technology doesn't work or you don't figure this out this weekend, send me an email and I will honor the offer. There's one other offer. It's actually really a good deal. The dating, relating, mating course we have is, it's this 3-part series, and it's on our website. It's an online program that sells for $135. If you buy it this weekend, it's using this coupon code, which is DRM $49. You get it for $49. That's kind of our way of thanking you for joining us today. It's an easy way to get involved in this work. And again, if you want to take advantage of it, but the technology doesn't work or something, just contact me and I'll make good on this. And then, you know, if you really want to get this in your bones, if you want to do something that in our minds will change your lives forever, try to come to one of our retreats. Right now we're doing them twice a year. The next one is in New Mexico, July 11 to 16. We have 2 places left. And then we'll do one again in late January, early February in Mexico. It's a powerful experience. It's a small community of people, 22 people, doing very deep work. And
you'll never see the world in the same way, can you?
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. I love your level of engagement, the questions you asked. I really appreciate all of you.
Yes, thank you so much.
A few thank yous and very useful webinar. Great comment here. Thich Nhat Hanh, The Art of Communication is a great resource for shifting from safety to heart consciousness. I agree.
Thank you, Marie.
It is. Thank you for the session. It was great. Okay, you're all very welcome. Retreat has profoundly changed my life.
That's from Lars.
And he's come a few times.
Yeah.
Thank you both. You're welcome, Alan. Okay. Bye, Harry. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.